Fresh off of PAX 2012, I am the stay-at-home dad gamer, and here I'm going to give a couple impressions I had of what I played and saw of God of War Ascension. Now, I stood in line for the multiplayer part, and I saw some of the single player. I didn't play that because I imagine it plays fairly similar, at least in some respects, to the other God of War games, and since I've played those, well, really, to me, this game, the success of it is going to hinge upon the multiplayer. So, before that, though, I'll quickly go into the single player from what I saw. Looked like there were some new enemies, which is kind of cool, like a big burly elephant man and some stuff that kind of looked like what we have seen before with big armored guys. But the thing that struck me, and I'll touch upon this in the multiplayer, is that they've made the controls the same. Now, you might say, well, of course, that makes sense. Yes, it does. But also, the multiplayer controls are very different from the other God of Wars. Therefore, Kratos controls different from the other God of Wars. Like grapple instead of circle is R1. So R1 grapples, executes, does all that. Yeah, and there's a couple other slight changes that are just really weird. I kind of worry of how that's going to impact the single player and the longtime fans of the game, because 5 games in and now you change some stuff just to make it mesh with multiplayer. I feel that if someone was on the fence about having multiplayer in, that little bit might just kill off their interest in the game. And I'm not sure about the plot, but at one point the enemy broke something that Kratos needed to climb, so he has some ability to reverse time and like it reassembled it. I don't know what that's about. That's kind of odd. I guess he did have a power similar to that in God of War 2 where he could stop time or rewind it or whatever. So maybe it plays upon that. Anyway, now for multiplayer. I'm not a huge multiplayer versus person, and I really like single player games. I love co-op too, but primarily I want a single player game. So I don't know if you have seen my blog post about The Last Bastion Gone, where they announced that God of War was multiplayer, and still a shaky aspect. After playing it, it plays okay. It's a multiplayer brawler. I haven't really played any of those. It did control weird, and I don't know. It was okay, but I don't think it's super great. I don't know. I don't know how to express it other than I don't think it's what people need out of multiplayer God of War, but I don't know. So basically, you have your heavy, you have the standard attack, which is square, and then triangle is just an unblockable. It didn't really feel like a combo ender so much as it just stopped people from blocking. And R1, as mentioned before, is grapple, and you're supposed to grapple people if they dodge, which is the right stick, same as always, or if they jump or climbing. But I don't know if those are the only instances where you could do it, because there were times where a guy was away from me and I couldn't grapple him, and I don't think he blocked it. He was like fighting someone else, so I tried to, he was like hitting one of my teammates, so I tried to grapple him and just be like, no, I don't think so, but that didn't seem to work. And sometimes when a guy was running away, the grapple wouldn't work either, which they show you in the little demo of grapple is it's supposed to work then, is if a guy's running away, you just grapple him back. I don't know if there's some crazy counter move that he did, because no one really grappled me. So I'm not sure if there's like a button prompt where you can block it or you can parry it. I don't know. Also, parry is L1 and R1, so that it might tone it down, but it also, I think it'll make it harder to do, because in the other God of War is basically if you blocked it the right time, it would do it, which is how a lot of games do it, and I think that's a fairly good system. So making it 2 buttons, I kind of question. I think it's going to be way harder to do. Excuse me. And there are red chests to get orbs, because there's like, at least this mode, your object was to get 5,000 orbs. They call it favor, but it's basically red orbs. And so treasure chests would give you some, kills would give you some, and there was a big Cyclops in the background that after a while it would drop. I believe it was the Sword of Olympus, they called it. And if you use that to kill the Cyclops, you'd get 1,000 points. So if your team had 4,000 and you did that, you just won. I actually only died once, which is pretty surprising. I watched some people play before, and I saw that the special move with the hammer in the air, you do like a ground pound, was actually a really good move because it was stun guys. So I kind of cheated a little bit, and I knew to pick the hammer. So that actually worked really well, Because if you could jump and there were two guys, and I believe it used triangle, so I think it was unblockable, but they would try to hit you, and then you just crash down and damage them and stun them. I think I executed one guy because they get the little. It's not even a circle above them anymore. It's like this weird halo thing. Like it's just kind of an odd change. I know that because it's not the circle button anymore, they're not going to put that, but it's just an odd thing. And I only did it to one guy because most times either other people were hitting him and he would just die, or someone else hit the R1 button before I did. Doesn't really matter. I think maybe you get bonus or a favor for it, but you just kind of run around killing guys. The arenas were kind of confusing. I had a hard time figuring out how to go to the different levels and where, because at points it was basically not capture the flag, King of the Hill, I think it's called. I don't know. It's the there's a mode in War for Cybertron for it where there's 3 different nodes and you like capture those and you keep getting points the longer you have them captured. And we had 2 of them, and the third one it took me like a minute to figure out how to get over there. So hopefully the arenas are a little bit easier, because just flying in blind, it's going to be harder to get over there, and therefore the advantage goes to the seasoned team, which then discourages newer players from joining. Not like I'm saying they should make it completely newbie friendly, but at the same time there has to be some kind of hope, otherwise why would you even start playing if you don't play it at launch? So what happens was we toward the end the sword dropped. We had 4,100 points and the other team had 3,920, and I don't know who all my teammates are. They have names, but I don't always look at them. They're just green or red. And someone started killing the Cyclops, and I was like, oh, great. If that's us, we've won, because I believe we have 4,100, and otherwise they're 1 or 2 kills off of doing it. So as the animation's happening, the announcer, there's like, a booth guys, and he's announcing, he's like, oh, and the Spartans win. And I was like, oh, then I assume that I'm on the Spartans and that we just won, because otherwise they would still have 80 points. So we actually did end up winning, which is fairly surprising. Surprised me, because I'm not a super competitive guy, and I'm not really good at those kinds of things. But we won, and so we got a t-shirt for it, which was pretty cool. But I really, in essence, worry that changing the controls might hurt the longtime fans. They might adjust. It's just hearsay at this point. I'm just kind of guessing. But I know if I was a fan of a game and they just suddenly changed the controls on the 6th game while adding something else I probably didn't agree with, I wouldn't be too happy with it. So I hope that works out okay for them. And what I played of the multiplayer, it was unique in the fact that I haven't played a 3D multi-team brawler. I would almost liken it to Power Stone. That's how the levels and the view and everything felt in the combat. It's fairly simplistic combat. You die pretty quickly, but there's also an escape and heal so you can get out of combos, which is really nice because you kind of need that. If the other guy's faster, you're just in his combo. And if there's 2 guys beating on you, there's not much you can do other than do that escape and hope you can run or do a special move, do something. You kind of need that, like, get off of me so you can escape. But it didn't feel that special to me. I don't think the series needed to go in this direction. Still, I don't feel that way. Will it sell a lot? Yes, because it's God of War, and there's a single-player component. But at this point, I don't feel it's going to have the longevity that they want. Really, most game companies are trying to defeat used game sales. Therefore, they throw in multiplayer in the vain hopes that people will keep it longer. In my experience, that backfires 8 out of 10 times. I don't know. So, that was pretty much it. The game looked great. The graphics were really good. Of course, it's a PS3 game. It's this late in the cycle of the PS3. It's going to look good. The music was good. The character models for multiplayer, one character looked a lot like Hercules from God of War 3. They're kind of generic muscle men. And there was no customization. It was just, do you have this armor or this armor? And do you have a sword or a hammer? Hopefully they have a few more options. I don't know if they need a perk system or anything. But hopefully there's more options than just either or. Because spells, weapon, armor, all of that, there was just 2 options. I really hope for more, to add a little bit of customization there. Hopefully there's even more than that you can color your armor, or at least pick you could pick the core type of armor and then add shoulder pads, helmets as you deem necessary or for aesthetic effect. Other than that, though, it looked okay. Yeah, people will probably love it. I still feel the move to multiplayer was really unnecessary, but we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching.